Hi, my name is Arnold, and today I shall be talking about censorship. But before we dive into the specifics, I must tell you what censorship is. Censorship can be defined as the suppression of speech, public communication, or other forms of information. An example of censorship from outside of Indonesia would be Google being banned in China. Now, the specifics. First, books. Most of the banned books in the early years were banned due to its connection with communism or even anything that is left-wing related or anything that pushes the left-wing agenda. Even some Indonesian writers were stifled and censored in the country for producing books with such themes. An example would be Indonesian author Pramoedya Ananta Toer. This is him right here. Now, he was celebrated overseas and even nominated for the Nobel Prize for Literature. But due to his association with Lekra, a literary organization under the PKI, the Indonesian Communist Party, his works were suppressed. In 1981, two of his books were even burned by the government in Jakarta, and his epic Buruh Quartet remained banned in Indonesia until after the fall of Suharto around 1998 or 1999 or so. Even in the past 2 decades or so, things have only changed a little. There are still banned books. The criteria of the bans were still the same. If it talks about communism or anything left-wing, it's banned. Of course, there's an added clause. If it talks about something that makes Indonesia look bad, it's of course banned. Now, movies. From many that I have researched, there are about 7 to 9 movies that are soft banned. I'll explain later. The first movie would be 1976's Max Havelaar. Now, that movie was banned because of it showing a parallel between the government at the time and the colonial rule of yesteryear. The next movie would be 1982's The Year of Living Dangerously. Now, that movie talked about the last few days of Suharto's reign as president of Indonesia in 1965 through the point of view of a foreign correspondent. Now, that movie was banned due to it being a critique towards, due to it showing criticisms towards the Sukarno government, and one of the characters that we're supposed to feel sympathy for being part of the PKI movement, the Indonesian Communist Party movement. Fun fact, actually, the movie was supposed to be recorded, it was supposed to be shot in Indonesia itself, but the Suharto government at the time said no, so they moved to the Philippines where they shot it instead. You can actually see from one of the scenes that one of the person is actually calling it in Tagalog, is actually praying in Tagalog in one of the scenes. The language of Philippines. So the next movie would be 1994's Schindler's List. Now, that movie talks about Nazism, and that talks about the real tale of a man called Schindler, a man with the last name Schindler, and that he risked basically his rich life to save the lives of millions of Jewish people from being killed. Now, it was banned because it was showing support for the Jewish cause. I'm sorry. I'm utterly disgusted and shocked as you are, but they banned it for that reason. We can't look more bad, huh? So, the next movie would be The Long Road to Heaven in 2007. Now, that movie was only banned in Bali, but that was because the movie itself, well, it was a documentary. It was a documentary about the 2002 Bali bombings. The next would be 2009's Balibo. Now, that movie was banned because of its critique towards the Indonesian government. But that movie itself was talking about the Balibo 5, a group of 5 journalists who were killed during Indonesia's 1975 invasion of East Timor, otherwise known as Operation Lotus. The next 2 documentaries were banned because it talked about the Communist Purge in 1965, and which still has some information suppressed to this day and some information that are still not there yet. And of course, some of the people that did it are still being in power, so it was banned. It was soft banned. The first documentary would be 2012's Act of Killing, and then the 2014's The Look of Silence, made by the same person, Joshua Oppenheimer. The next movie would be 2014's Noah, a movie that tells the story from the book of Genesis about the Great Flood. Now, that movie was banned because it showed the prophets in a bad light. Indonesia is a Muslim country. The next movie would be 2015's 50 Shades of Grey. It was banned obviously for its sexual themes. Now, to be perfectly clear, these movies are not, illegal to own. That means you won't go to jail for owning them, but they are soft banned. What I mean by that is that it's not completely illegal. It's just difficult to access. This is to dissuade the public from seeking it out. You see, if it were to be banned, people would want to seek it out to see what all the hubbub is about. If it were not banned, people won't take a second thought about it. Now, music. Now, as of my research, no music has been strictly banned in Indonesia. A lot of it is partly free. Some music has been restricted to air, or to put in understandable terms, only allowed to be played after 10 p.m. Most of these songs were put into set category due to their sexual themes. Prior to this decision, there was actually one notable song that was considered taboo, which was called Genjer Genjer. Now, I'm not playing that song because, still scared and all that. But that song, well, there was nothing sexual about the song, or nothing, anarchist about the song. The song basically talked about struggle, basically. Basically, the song itself, I don't know what the song means technically, but basically it was used by the PKI as basically a theme of their struggle. And because, there was the PKI purge, and there was the communist purge and everything, that song became basically banned. So if you were to play it to your grandfather or your grandmother that was alive at the time, yeah, they would just tell you to shut it off completely, because they're still afraid. Now, before I talk about the rest, I would like to talk about the main organization that's behind these censorship. The Indonesian Broadcasting Commission, or the KPI as we call it. They are the head honchos of censorship in this country, and they are the ones typically to make a blunder of it all. Now we can move to the next medium, which the KPI is mostly working on, which is television programs. TV shows in the country are highly regulated. I'm not saying that all channels are, but it's just channels that are in Indonesia, because because for the international channels, they have no jurisdiction over here. Notable acts of the KPI towards TV would be blurring anything sexual and violence related, and as usual, they went overboard. Notable acts including guns being blurred that resulted in very actiony or dramatic scenes being very comedic in a split second, just like. And then entire scenes that may contain sexual content or violent content that are completely blacked out, that resulted in the next scene not making any sense, and even blurring things for being too sexual despite them being rather tame. Now, an example of that would be an episode of Doraemon. Now, this episode was rather tame, but basically one of the plot points in this story was that Nobita and Doraemon, the main characters of Doraemon, went on a boat with their friends, and one of the female characters, which was their age of the time, a schoolgirl's age, was wearing a swimsuit because it's an appropriate wear at the appropriate place. Now, the KPI thought that it was too sexual and they blurred it. Now, what compels them to think that, a child wearing a swimsuit, which is a normal thing, which is an appropriate wear, to be sexual? Think about that. Now, we've come to the last medium and the most important medium of all, the internet. The internet in Indonesia has been deemed partly free. Now, it was ranked at 47. They came midway between the end of the free range at 30 and the start of the not free range at 60. The internet was rather free towards the period prior to 2007, but between 2007 and 2008, the government started to crack down. Then over the years, the government worked alongside internet service providers such as, Telkomsel, Indosat, and First Media and all that, to block certain websites. These websites were pornographic in nature, or at least contain some sexual themes. So let me explain. So what they want is to have their internet to not show any pornographic nature at all. Basically, they do not want anything sexual or pornographic to be able to be accessed on the internet. They would start blocking websites. Now, you might think, but some websites have, filters where you can basically put it so that the pornographic and sexual things don't show. They don't want that. What they want is complete inability to access them. So, what they did is to ban the websites that still gives you the option to turn it off, and basically clear all of the websites that basically conform to the regulations. An example of that would be Reddit and Tumblr. Now, Tumblr was banned due to its sexual content and pornographical content, and Reddit was also banned for its sexual and pornographical content back in 2017. But Tumblr has been the only one that has been, allowed back in, and Reddit was not, because Tumblr purged of the pornographic material. Meanwhile, Reddit still kept it. But I've got 3 words for you: VPN. And if you use VPN, you can still use it now, but it'll rather be useless to go to Tumblr for the sexual content now. Of course, in recent years, there was an upside. In recent years, they also started to block the distribution of fake news. Not to make paranoia of everything, to make sure the public understands that some news are fake and some news are real. In conclusion, censorship in Indonesia boils down to 3 things, which are past history, religion, and government. The 3 basic fundamentals of Indonesia itself, basically. Past history was and still is a quite sensitive topic. For example, anything that basically shows them in a bad light, anything that shows basically the sins of the past for Indonesia, banned. Religion is quite sacred to Indonesia, being the largest Muslim population. Well, one of the largest Muslim population. So they incorporate some of its teachings into laws that does not go well in the current age. But even then also, of course, some of its teachings, even then, Indonesia actually has one region, which is Aceh, that still does Sharia law. Finally, we have the government, which is full of insensitive, selfish, and immature, let me just be clear here, children who can't take a joke or criticism, even if it was a joke or criticism about their own actions. So, that's it. Thank you for watching this or possibly listening to it. And I hope you have a good day. And be safe out there.